All right, it is September of 2021. So I have been doing intermittent fasting pretty much every day, at least 14 hours every day, usually more, and occasionally I'll string 2 or 3 of those days together to make a multi-day fast. I've been doing this for 20 months now. Thought I'd make a little bit of a review like I do every so often. Now, let's talk about the benefits of fasting. A lot of people tend to think of fasting as giving up their food, right? I like to view it as taking a vacation away from food, right? Even if you love your job, even if you love your partner, you sometimes take a vacation away from it, right? And food can be viewed the same way, right? And one thing I want to say is that there is a lot to life outside of food. Actually, the majority of life should be outside of food, right? Unfortunately, here in the United States, we see otherwise. So recently, Biden was talking about how many Americans are hungry. It really flies in the face of what I see every day, right? Most people have plenty to eat. They might not have money for the best clothing. They might not have money for entertainment. They might not have money to travel. They always have plenty to eat, to overeat, and to literally harm themselves with overeating. And yet Biden is saying how many Americans are hungry and how he needed to spend even more taxpayer money to deal with it. Really flies in the face of what I see every day. There are certainly people who need to feed their addiction to food, but maybe not so much to feed their bodies, right? And that's what Biden is literally saying, right? He didn't say the A word, obviously, but he kind of implied it, right? And what do I mean by there's more to life than food? Well, I made my resolution to normalize my relationship with food back in early 2020. So on New Year's night 2020, I had gone on a 24-hour fast, and I thought that would be difficult. You got to understand, I was of the mindset that fasting is like giving up food. That's the mindset that I operated with. So that first, I woke up and I started fasting. That first day was pretty challenging, and I went to bed. The next day when I woke up, it was like a big peace had washed over me. I'll never forget that feeling. A big peace had washed over me that I didn't have to deal with all the hassles that eating comes with, right? You gotta prepare food, you gotta, especially I was living with roommates at the time, if I remember correctly. You gotta deal with all the hassles that come with preparing food, or maybe going to somewhere, to a restaurant, to a fast food place, whatever you're thinking of, right? There's a lot of problems or I wouldn't say problems, a lot of activities that have to surround that 5 or 10 minutes of pleasure that you get out of eating, right? And so the first couple of months of fasting, I instantly realized how much extra, not only time and money do I have, but capacity that I have, right? So imagine on your computer you have a certain amount of RAM. If your computer is busy eating or doing something, or I don't know what the equivalent of it, or maybe you have a very complicated charging process where your computer gets charged electricity and it's using a bunch of RAM to do that. Oh, then it has less RAM to surf the internet, to play a YouTube video. Eating kind of feels that way to me now, right? It takes up some of my mental capacity, if you will, my mental RAM, right? So I quickly discovered how much extra stuff I could get done, right? I'm an adjunct professor, and unfortunately, when I free up capacity, the students just want to take it away, right? So students want extensions, they have problems setting up their homework, and they call me all hours of the day, right? It seems like the more I free up myself, the more people walk over me. That's another story for another time. 2 months into my resolution, somebody halfway around the world couldn't control their desire to eat something crazy, and as a result, we all had difficulty getting to our favorite foods, our favorite activities, and I took that a lot better than times before. I mean, we obviously never had a crisis like that, but we've had other crises, right? But that one I took a whole lot better because I wasn't bogged down by eating desires. That first day that we locked ourselves up, I wrote an AI for the game of backgammon. A couple days after that, downtown Seattle became a ghost town, and I went there to take photographs. That's what I meant by freeing up mental capacity. I actually started to appreciate a chance to take photographs, a chance to free myself, write a backgammon AI, and I so previous to the pandemic, I used to almost never eat out at a restaurant because I had to explain dietary restrictions. I have allergies and I have high functioning autism. I need to watch what I eat. And it was more hassle than it was worth, right? Now, during the pandemic, I decided to explore a little bit. It was all takeout, obviously. And I had gone to a Thai restaurant. And long story short, I made a close friend. And one thing I noticed about fasting is that if I go a 16-hour fast, food tastes really sharp at the end of that fast. And I had a favorite restaurant that I had explained all my dietary restrictions to, that I would often go to break those long fasts because it really highlighted the tastes of everything. And I made some close friends at that restaurant, and I, like I said, because I wasn't bogged down by chasing food cravings all the time, it allowed me to appreciate art, appreciate learning new things, appreciate new music, appreciate the photography of Seattle, appreciate making a new friend at the restaurant. And that's what I meant by there is more to life than food, right? To be constantly thinking about food to the point that you have to worry about what you're going to have for lunch at the, when you go to work, to worry about what you're going to eat when you're on vacation. It's almost like being a eataholic, if you will, when people when they organize their lives like that. I don't know if that's a good word to use, but I used to be an eataholic. I'm surrounded by eataholics in my life, right? People who can't seem to dissociate their activities away from food. Can you imagine spending your day with a bottle like everywhere, right? In the car, at the board game club, at the bowling alley, always having that bottle, right? I see so many people like that, but with food, right? That's why I said eataholic. I took up bowling about a year ago now. When I started bowling, my first time at the bowling alley, well, not my first time ever, but my first time in a long time doing it seriously, I was scoring 80 or 90 points. Occasionally, it would be a big event if I got a 3-digit score. I would cheer loudly, and then everybody would think I was crazy because they would think that a 3-digit score was no big deal, right? But I had just started. Just the other night, I scored a 222. See, I could never have done that if my focus was always on my food, right? And I just think it's more beautiful to have a more diverse life outside of food, right? And not have food take up so much of your time, money, mental capacity, be a big part of your social life, be a defining character in your life. What really bothers me is that I have dietary restrictions, like I say. And people think that defines me. They think they shouldn't invite me to a party. People think the dietary restrictions define me. They think they shouldn't invite me to a party because I won't be able to join in on their food. They don't hire me for a job because they think I won't fit in with coworkers because of my eating differences. You get the idea, right? They just don't want to deal with me. I can think of too many times I go to a restaurant, I mention my dietary restrictions, and obviously they're not going to just say get out, but you can tell that their demeanor is like, don't come back here again because we're not going to give you good service, right? And I have a friend who owns actually the people at the Thai restaurant told me this. The people that I befriended during the pandemic, they were like, a lot of restaurants, they don't want to deal with liability issues, right? If they mess up and they could be liable, so they'd rather give you bad service so you just won't come back and deal with the implications of a bad review. It's a lot cheaper than the liability. Yeah, I guess, but that's part of the problem with the system, right? We shouldn't have it set up that way. We should be more communicate a little bit better than that, right? But people think that I'm not going to fit, and so they don't want to befriend me. They don't want to, if it's a job, they don't want to hire me. They don't want to serve me at the restaurant. But food is only one part of life, right? Just because we eat different things doesn't mean we can't be friends, we can't be colleagues, right? We can't do business together. Unfortunately, a lot of people refuse to see it that way, probably because food is such a big part of people's lives, right? That's what I meant by there is more to life than food, right? So I'm recording this in September. We're undergoing reopenings. I hope to go back, well, obviously when it's safe to. I hope to go back to Taiwan and to Poland. And where else do I like? Oh, Japan, obviously. And I think I'll enjoy those trips a lot better when food is not such a big slice of that pie, right? I think a lot of my trips in the past were ruined by food cravings and desires. And another big one that I experienced, I've noticed that my sex drive has improved a whole lot when I'm not constantly eating. Because I got to replace that pleasure with something, right? And I find that my sex drive has really increased exponentially during the time that I have normalized my relationship with food. Another thing I've noticed is that how much extra patience I seem to have. I used to have anger problems, especially when I was dealing with a food craving, right? One time I had I'm an adjunct professor, and I had almost lost my job over this. I had a student who showed up outside of our office hours. So I had office hours at 6 o'clock. I was in the break room eating. I only had like half an hour in between. I was working at a tutoring center and then the university, and I was sitting in the break room eating, all in my own world, lost in my own world, right? And the student showed up at 5:30, and he said he had problems with this installing software to do his homework. He was frantic, and I thought I could answer him in 2 minutes. You know, had I realized that it was going to take an hour to answer him, I would have just told him to come back at 6, right? I thought I could answer him in 2 minutes. I started, and I realized this is way more long-winded than I was prepared for. I really want to get back to my food, and I lashed out at him. I think I might have said a couple of obscenities. Long story short, not my prettiest moment, and I eventually apologized to him after I had normalized my relationship with food. I sent him an email to apologize and to thank him for making me realize just how far I had strayed away from where I should be in my life. I notice I have a whole lot more patience nowadays, not just with food, but with other things, right? I get interrupted in the middle of another pleasant activity, right? Writing computer games, photography, or somebody just wants to talk to me when I'm not in the mood. I used to really hate it. Let's say I'm really depressed, right? My computer crashes, or my girlfriend breaks up with me. My favorite food is not available, and I want to go out for a walk to take my mind off of it. Okay, I leave the house, I go for a walk, and then somebody on the road interrupts me when I'm lost in my own world, right? It could be a panhandler, it could be somebody asking for directions, it could even be somebody saying hello, it could even be a girl who wants to approach me, right? I used to lash out at those people because I was lost in my own little world, right? I noticed ever since correcting my eating disorder, that has been a much better, a much easier challenge to deal with too, because I realized that there is more to life than what you think, and sometimes a minor twist or turn in life can be a pleasant event, right? Okay, so 20 months of having a good relationship with food. I think it's the longest relationship I've ever had, right? I've never had a close relationship with a girl for more than 20 months, right? Well, actually I have, but I moved on from those. This one I'll probably keep for the rest of my life. Thanks for watching.